Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the wilds of Suffolk. I'm out here yet again doing what I do, walking along in beautiful locations such as this, and it is absolutely gorgeous here today. I hope it is as wonderful where you are. If it's your first time here, welcome. This is what I do. I hope you enjoy it. If you're a returning subscriber or 1,210 at this stage, I'm not too sure how the subscriber count is going to go after my last video, but at this stage, 1,210. So thank you all for one and all for being here. It's I'm humbled by how many people join me for these walks. So thank you one and all. So today I get asked a lot. Why I talk about what's happening in America so much, and there's lots of reasons for that. But one of the main reasons is because I talk about the economy and I talk about money and those kind of things, and a lot of things link back to almost everything links to money. And at this stage, but not for much longer, at this stage the world reserve currency is the American dollar. So you'll notice that everything is priced in American dollars, and the petrodollar that we have as our world reserve currency is based on oil, but it's still the American dollar. So I do tend to focus a lot on American politics and a lot of on money that has to do with America, and especially with things to do with banking and central banking, because that affects the whole world by what happens in America and what happens with the US dollar. That's why I focus a lot of attention on America, what's happening in America and the things that are happening in and around and what that means to the rest of us. Okay? But today, we're going to be focusing right here in the UK and the EU. So we're going to be talking about a subject that is, it's one of those ones that is not as bad as the last subject material I did, but it's one of those things that it sparks a lot of debate and people are very, very passionate about it, and that is Brexit. Now, I'll give you a bit of a bit of a background into what that is and how it came about and where we are in that whole process, and then I'll give you the sort of update of what we're happening here at the moment in the UK. Now, there's another part of this video. At the end, I'm going to tell you a story about the strangest thing that's ever happened in my life, the strangest experience that I've ever had in my life, happened to me yesterday, and I want to share it with you all. The story is so insane. I never saw it coming. I was so completely blown away by what happened that I could make a whole video about it, and just I still couldn't get to the point with just how strange it was and how much it affected me. So just hold on, because after I get through the Brexit stuff, I'm going to tell you that story. It is so weird, but I have to tell you. Okay, so let's get on with this whole Brexit thing. So a few years ago, I don't know how many years ago now, there was a talk about the UK leaving the EU. Now, this is the EU is the European Union, for those of you who don't know. Now, the EU originally started its life after the Second World War as an agreement called the EEC, the European Economic Community. Now, it was originally designed for countries that had been fighting against each other in the war to be able to trade with each other within the European bloc, the EEC. So, you know, to trade with Italians and Hungarians and, you know, Germans and you know, the UK after the Second World War, to get people trading again, because, you know, if you have countries that are continually fighting with each other, we're fighting for years, you have to be able to set up economic trade to rebuild those countries after the war, right? So the EEC was set up, European Economic Community, okay, to try and get that trade going again, okay? Now, what the EEC morphed into was the EU. Now, what happened there was the Germans and the French essentially run the EU for all intents and purposes. They make the rules. So what it became was, rather than being an economic community, it became a body that started to make laws for all these different countries. So you have a central governing body, the EU, that was then making laws that all the countries, all the member states had to agree to. They didn't have a choice. So every member state gets a vote from their representative of their country. But, you know, if the majority passes a law within the EU, then every country has to adopt it. Okay, so it became a foreign governing body that would make laws that each of the member states or the member countries had to abide by. Okay, now that was one of the things that the Trilateral Commission set up. If you don't know about the Trilateral Commission, please go and look. So what the idea was that the EU was going to be set up as a trading body with one currency called the euro, which is there now. Okay, the UK joined but never took on the euro, so the pound was still the pound, and that pound, because it was still linked to the euro, gave the euro some strength in terms of what it could buy. Okay, so it gave it some monetary strength with the UK being involved in the euro, even though it never accepted the euro as money. You with me? Okay. So the Trilateral Commission found a way that they could manipulate the EU to become this huge state, or member countries to become a huge state as an economic buying super state, if you like, much like they were trying to do with America and Canada and Mexico. Afternoon, how are we doing? Getting out in the beautiful weather and talking to myself. Have a wonderful afternoon. So what the idea was to have the EU as set up as a group of countries that traded as a single entity. And there was going to be another one in America with America, Canada, and Mexico, and their currency was going to be called the Amero. Okay, and then in the Asian regions they had the ASEAN, ASEAN, I think it was called, ASEAN region, which is Japan, China, Australia, New Zealand. That region was going to be the Asian region, right? So you had these massive blocks of member countries in these three different things. Then those three different things were going to join together to form a one world governing body. Okay, now this will all make sense when I get to the point of what I'm trying to get to, but the idea was to eventually join all the countries together to have a one world governing body under the UN. Okay, so the governing body of the whole world would be a centralized governing body of the world under the guise of the UN and safety and security and all the rest of the rubbish that they try and sell it as. Okay, now originally the EEC became the EU, which became a governing body, an outside governing body. Now a few years ago there was a referendum here in this country where the politicians said, we're going to ask the will of the people. Do the people of the United Kingdom want to leave the EU? That was the question. There was a referendum. We're going to ask the public, and if the public agrees, we're going to leave the EU. We're going to leave the European Union. Okay? The referendum came back, resounding, yes, we want to leave. Then all the politicians and the media and everyone decided that they were going to push back against it. No, we're not going to listen to the people of this country. We're not going to do that. It's too important that we stay in the EU, because obviously they were making money out of it. The public was vilified. You're too stupid to make decisions. You know, all this kind of nonsense went on, and then it was told, oh no, well, the public didn't really know what they were voting for because there was all these lies told. You know, they did everything in their power to scupper what they promised that they would do. Right? Went on for a long time. There was lots of backwards and forwards arguments. Theresa May said, oh, get this done. She's a complete clown. That's why she left the position. Boris Johnson says, oh, don't worry, I'll get it done. Now, in all these negotiations, the EU wanted to punish the UK, because if the UK left and did really, really well, then that would look bad for the EU. So they wanted to punish the UK as much as possible by putting in these ridiculous terms, and we didn't control our own fishing waters here in the UK, yada, 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 to make it look as bad as possible, so that no other member nations of the EU wanted to leave. Okay? Now, what we see now, this finally it got done. Shitty deal, but, you know, a deal is better than no deal. So we left the EU a few years ago. I think it was 2018 or 2019, a few years ago now, okay? It was done. It was wrapped up. Lots of, people are still, cringing and saying this should never have been done. The usual people. But it was done a few years ago, before lockdowns, before any of this nonsense happened. The deal was done, and there wasn't the chaos that they said there was going to be. There wasn't these, they said all these things. Our pound is going to collapse, and all the borders are going to be a joke. Nothing happened. It was fairly smooth. We've got still freight coming to and from the EU. We've still got people being able to move backwards and forwards. All this time, it hasn't been an issue until now. Okay, now here in the UK, we've got the Guardian, we've got the Independent. They're all running these articles where all the travel chaos at the border, all these people being held up at airports, and it's all because of Brexit. Oh, and we haven't got any employees anymore because of Brexit. Everything is, now they're blaming Brexit. Now, everything is Brexit's fault. Okay, even though it's been done for years, now everything is Brexit's fault. Now, if you remember, if you've seen some of my older videos, I said to you, they have to have an excuse for why the financial system collapses. Okay, they're not going to wear it. They're not going to let you see them that they've done this deliberately. They need an excuse for why it's collapsed. First, we had the whole nonsense we've been living with for 2 years. I'm not even going to say it because it's just bullshit. Everything they said for 2 years was nonsense. All the lockdowns, mask mandates, all that garbage, pointless. Never did anything, and the only thing it did do was stop production and raised inflation. Okay, so that didn't work. Then we had the war. Oh my God, it's the war. Remember I predicted that one? That went ahead because they're looking desperately for an excuse as to why this thing is going to collapse before the end of the year. Okay, this whole financial system, the economy, everything's going down. Okay, I know that people don't believe me. They're still going, oh, you're so full of it. But, well, am I really? Look at the inflation. So we've got to this point now where all the papers, all the media, the talking heads, the politicians, oh, it's all Brexit. Oh, it's all Brexit. It's Brexit, it's Brexit, it's Brexit. Everything is Brexit because they need an excuse for things failing. Why don't we have any wheat? I live. You've seen the area I live. I live in the country. Everywhere around here is fields full of wheat, corn, what do you call it? The mustardy one. Rapeseed oil, you name it, every field is planted. All the wheat fields are out there, nearly some of it's being harvested now. But every field is planted. There's not a field around here that is not planted with food. But we have massive food shortages apparently. From where? Oh, because all of our food comes from Ukraine. Where? I don't think I've ever opened a packet of food that said made in Ukraine or packaged in Ukraine or grown in Ukraine. Not one. But maybe I'm not looking at my food close enough. What about you? Are you seeing food from Ukraine where you live? I don't even know where they grow in Ukraine. Apparently they grow lots of wheat. So 20% or 25% of the world's wheat. Okay. I believe you. No, I really do. I really do. That everything comes from Ukraine. All the oil. That's why the oil price is up, because of Ukraine. I'm pretty sure there's oil fields around this country, everywhere. In Australia, do you get your oil from Ukraine as well? The rest of the world's not producing oil, like the Middle East, not producing oil anymore. I mean, maybe I missed that memo. I don't know. But we're told that everything is happening because of Ukraine. Ukraine, that whole thing is a joke. What's happening there as we go further and further down the road, more things being exposed. The Pentagon's actually admitted, yes, we do have 46 bio-weapons labs in Ukraine, but it's for defense purposes, we promise. Who are they set up by? Metabiota. Who owns that company? Who's that? What's his name? Hunter Biden? Hunter Biden? Really? Hunter Biden was taking Ministry of Defense money and setting up biolabs in Ukraine? Really? That's strange. Why is Putin really in Ukraine? Because he's a crazy person, right? Okay. I'm sure that any country that found out that there was bioweapons labs on their border after they've been to the UN Security Council a number of times with evidence proving that, I'm sure that any country that wasn't getting any kind of resolution from the UN, remember the world government, I'm sure that any country that went to the UN and wasn't getting any satisfaction would do exactly what Russia did. I'm not trying to excuse anything, but look at what's going on. And as the evidence comes out, you can only deny it for so long. So, oh yes, Russia's bad. Okay, that's all we've heard for 5 years, right? Russian collusion, they hacked the elections, blah, blah, blah. Was it the Russians putting in there all those ballots into the drop box? I'm pretty sure they went Russian, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. So this Brexit mania that we see in all the UK papers and all the online stuff about them, if you ever look Guardian, Independent, they're all doing it. They're all making these articles about how everything is because of all the travel chaos is Brexit. Even though we've had Brexit for a lot of years. Travel chaos at the airports, Brexit. Food shortages, Brexit and Ukraine. All the prices of energy is going up here because obviously we buy all of our energy from Ukraine as well. Even though we've got wind turbines off the coast, right here where I live. Yeah, and I'm on a green tariff. I don't understand, but maybe I'm just too stupid. I've been told that many times. So we've got a situation here where everything, again, they're looking for an excuse, any excuse, so that they don't have to wear the blame of the poor decisions that these governments and banks and the whole financial industry has made. They don't want to wear it. So, looking for an excuse. And Brexit's the latest one. Now, I live and work in this kind of place. My work is in the middle of a forest. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Okay? I have to set the scene for you. This is the second part of the video. I said I have to tell you the story, the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life. And it is relevant because when you live in a place like this, I lived in London for 18 years of my life. I grew up in Australia, obviously, and traveled the world extensively. So I've seen some stuff. A couple of things. Now, I've worked at this place where I work on and off for about 4 or 5 years, on and off. I did some casual work there originally, and then they asked me to come on full time. Now, it's relevant to the story to tell you that where I live, where I work, this is the kind of place I am. Okay, it's not in the city. It's not in a town. We are literally in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a forest. Okay. So yesterday on a Sunday we do a roast, a carvery. Okay, so people come in, they sit down at the table. We have my colleague, who I haven't asked her permission to use her name, so I won't. It's a female colleague I have. Wonderful person, puts up with me most days, which is amazing, and works like a Trojan. So we work together every day. There's 3 of us in the kitchen, very small team that we have, and yesterday was our busiest day of the week, every Sunday, because people want to come and have a roast. And I was there, I was in the kitchen doing the vegetables and all the things that need to be done in the kitchen. This lady was out the front doing the carvery, actually carving the meat and putting that on the plates. That goes to the people at the tables. Okay? Have I set the scene? Okay. Now, I've worked in restaurants for 35 years, since I was 15 years old, coming up to 35 years in August of this year. Okay, so I'm 50 in August. 50. Can you believe it? Look how pretty I am. So, 35 years in kitchens. And I've worked all over the world. I have worked in places that are incredibly clean. I've worked in places that are incredibly filthy. Across the board, I've worked in France. I've worked in Canada. I've been a lot of different places. I've worked a lot of different places. I've seen a lot. I've experienced a lot, but never in my life have I experienced what I saw yesterday. Okay, and it has really affected me. Okay, so I get into work yesterday. It starts out a bit quiet during the service, a few tables here and there, and then we're just starting to sort of get a few more tables in, and this female chef I work with comes into the kitchen and says, "Chris, there's a mouse in the restaurant. I went, oh, that's not good. That's really isn't good at all. You know, this is a really bad thing, because every experience that I've ever seen where we've had guests in the restaurant and a mouse or a rat is showing up, everyone is disgusted and thinks this place is filthy, and they leave. Some screaming. I've experienced this before. It is not a situation that you want to be part of. In a restaurant, you don't ever want to see a rodent in your restaurant, because it gives a sign that your restaurant isn't clean. Okay? So she's standing in front of me. I'm standing there just like, oh, what do I do? You know, it's really not good. Do I go out into the restaurant and try and catch this thing without people seeing? So then I just thought, I said to her, has anyone seen it? And she said, I think everybody has. And my heart sank, and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? What, I mean, what, I was stood there thinking, this is not going to end well. This is the end of our restaurant. Our reputation is gone, right? Now, bear in mind, I've been doing this for a long time, and there isn't a situation I've ever seen where this ends well, ever. And I've seen a lot of these kind of situations. A cockroach, a mouse, a rat, anything that people see in your restaurant is a reflection of your restaurant, okay? So we have these windows cut in the door so I can actually see into the restaurant. She disappears back out to the front. Now, I'm watching out through the window, and so just as she's told me, yes, I think everyone's seen it, I look out through the window, and everybody in the restaurant's turning their head towards a mouse that's running around in the restaurant. And I'm looking, thinking, oh, right, what do I do? So she disappears back out the front to see what she can do. The staff have got boxes and all sorts of things trying to catch this thing. That's just, I was just mortified. What do I do? You know, as I watch all the people in the restaurant, and it was full, get up out of their seats, and I'm thinking, that's it. We've lost everyone. We've got a queue of people waiting to sit down. Okay? All the people get up out of their chairs, and I'm like, that's it. We're done. I've got a lot of food. All these people are about to leave. But instead of leaving, they start joining together. One person runs to the back of the restaurant, opens the door. They're holding the door open. All the other people and the rest of the customers, the customers in the restaurant who are having their dinner, get up out of their chairs and start to try and get the mouse to go out the door that they're holding open. Okay? I'm standing there open mouth like, what is happening? I've never in my life seen anything like this. All the customers are trying desperately to herd this mouse out the door of the restaurant. No one's screaming, no one's upset, no one's freaking out. Everyone's helping to usher this mouse out of the restaurant. Okay? Then at the back of the restaurant there's this lady. I said elderly when I was telling my wife the story earlier, but she wasn't elderly, she was older. So she was in her 60s, probably mid-60s, full grey hair, in her 60s, older lady. I'm not going to say elderly, because in the 60s you're still not elderly. You know, maybe in your 90s you're elderly, okay? So this woman in her 60s, full grey hair, gets out of a seat and dives on the floor, skids along the floor 2 meters and catches this mouse in her hands. While I'm watching, I'm upset. Like, all these people are gathered to try and catch his mouth. This woman jumps across the floor like a cricket player diving to catch a ball, like a wicket keeper of a cricket game trying to catch a ball. That's dives across the floor, skids across and catches the mouse in her hands. Right? I was like, open mouth. I said to one of my colleagues, I just saw something incredible. And as I turn around and she's got the mouse in both of her hands. Walks out, they hold the door open for her and she lets it outside. She comes back in and the whole restaurant applauds what she just did. I'm flabbergasted. I didn't know what to say at this point. I was stood there just watching, thinking, did that really just happen? Right? In a restaurant, people are happy that a mouse has got in and they've just ushered it out the door, right? Now, I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it, that I witnessed that. Now, my female colleague went to the bathroom at one point and bumped into the lady who actually caught it, right? So she's like, how did that all come about? And she's like, oh yeah. As she said, as soon as I saw it, I recognized it. It's called a bank vole. And she said, I knew exactly how to deal with it. So she said, I'm a bird ringer. So I catch birds in the wild here, and she puts their little tags on the legs so they can track their migration. She says, I'm used to catching small animals that move really quickly. But she dived out of her seat like, I haven't seen young people being this nimble. This lady who was in her 60s dived across the floor to catch this thing and caught it, let it outside. And the fact that she knew exactly what it was, she knew how to deal with it, knew it wasn't dangerous and all, you know, it wasn't going to bite her and all these kind of things. And she just happened to be the right person to be right there at that moment to deal with it right then. Astounding. It was such a unique, different experience that made me realize, like, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen today. You got no idea. And the world can surprise you so utterly. And, you know, I was thinking I knew exactly what was going to happen. Boy, was I wrong. You know, I was so wrong. And the world just utterly surprised me. And then it reminded me, where am I? Where am I? I'm in the country. This is country life. The people around me, they're attached to the land. They're part of it. They are in tune with the place that they live, unlike the people who live in the city. And I know because I lived in the city for 18 years of my life in London, where people are closer to rats and mice than they think that they are. They're utterly surrounded by them, but they're so cut off from the land that they live in. Look at it. You know, we're in the country here. We're in the middle of nowhere. But people here are really attached to the land. They are in touch with where they live, and they know what they need, and they know how to deal with it. Now, what does this mean to do with Brexit, I hear you say? Because it's just two entirely different stories that I've been telling right now, where I'm talking about Brexit and leaving a European Union, and then I'm telling a story about a woman leaping out of her chair and catching a mouse on a restaurant floor. They don't seem connected, right? But they are. Now, when I talk about decentralized everything, decentralized money, governments, you know, all these kind of things, centralization of anything causes a problem, because in this country alone, here in the UK, we have different regions, different areas of the country that require different solutions to different problems. Now, London has its own problems and they require different solutions than we do here in Suffolk, which is the food growing area. All the pork comes from here, the wheat and everything is growing around this area because it has lots of sunshine, enough rain to sustain it. And the people around here get it. They understand it because they're attached to the land and the place that they live. Okay? Now, when you have a centralized governance, like we do here in the UK, where you have a central government that's based in London, they think in terms of London. And London is what? Money. It's all about money. It's the financial system, all the big financial players are in London. But the problem is that when you have the centralized government there telling everyone else what to do, how can they possibly govern that gives this area what we need, which is, you know, to do with farming and being in touch with the land, and the up north, something completely different again. Now, what happens if we are sending our governance to a centralized authority outside of this country? You have that government there is now trying to deal with a much, much bigger problem, centralization of laws and governance, where they're trying to govern multiple places with multiple different traditions, multiple different cultures, backgrounds. Some are cities, some are rural areas, some are growing areas. How can you have a centralized government for a country, a European bloc, or the world that can't govern for local areas and local traditions, local cultures, and people who understand what they need for their area? You can't. It has to be localized rather than centralized. So centralization of control and power is not good because it doesn't give fair representation to the people of the areas that live in those areas that require local governance, because we require local solutions. See how it joins together? Decentralization is the answer to everything. And what that means to governance and what it means to money and what it means to everything is really important that you understand, and how those things play out in your everyday life. So when you're looking at things like Brexit and foreign governance and one world power or whatever you want to do, you need to understand how that is going to affect the average person who living in those areas, who understands the place that they live, understands what it needs. That's what we need to think back to. That's what we need to go back to. So, what do you think? That was my little story. I hope you enjoyed it, because it gives credence to understanding where you are, what you need, and your connection to the place that you're living. Because with that connection, then you have a deeper understanding of where you are, what you need, and the people in it. So, go out into the world, and it is a beautiful world that we live in. It is incredible. Go out into the world, do good and be good. You can change the world with your thoughts, your actions, and your speech, and the way that you interact with each other, and understanding that people have different thoughts and different motivations, but they have their own connection to the land. So interpret that, understand it, and realize that we're all different, and we have to make the use of that. We all don't think the same, we don't all act the same. Make the best of that, because we can all contribute something. Right, so look after yourself, look after each other. I love you all. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I've got much more coming up, so thank you for being here today. And if you like what I'm doing, share it. If you don't, then don't. I don't mind. Hit the like button, don't. It's up to you. But thank you very much for joining me for today, and I look forward to seeing you real soon. Take care. Ciao for now. Bye.